Okay, good morning, afternoon, everyone. Let's begin. Welcome to our eighth and final healthcare series. So glad you're with us. Certainly a special thank you to those who have been on this journey with us, who have attended more than one, obviously. We started this back in June. Gosh, I don't know where time goes, but we appreciate that a great deal, and certainly welcome to those who are attending for the first time. Cindy, Anna, and I have been so excited to bring you this healthcare series focused on well-being, which started, as I said, in June, where we have been showcasing to our community the best of the best innovations in well-being, those positively impacting organizations as they focus on attracting, engaging, and certainly retaining talent. Before I turn it over to our session leader, Art Dickerson, to introduce Golden and Workplace Healing, we want to acknowledge and certainly thank our sponsors, ADP and Siegel, and of course, Art, for his master facilitation and moderation skills. ESA considers Art really one of the innovators in the well-being space. He has been instrumental in bringing forward solutions who are unique and some of the best. Art is the president and CEO of Top Gear Strategies, has been at the forefront of innovation for over 4 decades, and his company advises on leading innovations and growth strategies. With that, I will turn it over to Art to set the stage for our time together to introduce Golden and Workplace Healing. Art, we thank you again for all you've done for us. All yours.
Thank you, John. And I just want to thank you, Cindy and Anna, for allowing me the opportunity to spend the last 2 months showing all these progressive employers on the line new ways to double down on improving engagement and retention. You know, we have been focusing on behavioral health and financial areas to do that, and now have the 2 best of the best companies that we want to share with you today, who are also positively impacting the future work. That's both Golden and Workplace Healing. And as John said, we're recording today's session, and we will send out a link to the ESA's YouTube channel and all the presentations. And again, even though this is the final chapter, we want to thank you for your time today. We're grateful that you've chosen this particular time to learn with us on how to improve well-being and outcomes in order to optimize engagement and retention in this continuing war on talent. Today, you're going to be hearing from Julie Wald, who's the founder and Chief Wellness Officer of Golden. And you'll also hear from Mindy Corden and Lisa Cooper, who are co-founders of Workplace Healing. Now, Julie's going to kick off the first session in just a moment, but I want to make sure that you stick around for part 2, led by Mindy and Lisa. It's equally engaging and something you won't want to miss. So just a few on the intros, if you don't mind advancing the slide there So Julie, we're delighted to have you on our panel today. We're very excited to hear how your company is helping other employers become the employer of choice by creating a caring culture and helping them do the right thing. Moving on to the next slide, Mindy and Lisa, you were also selected carefully to be on this call today. So our employers on this phone call could learn about your innovative software platform that helps build empathetic muscle to support grieving employees, which in today's world is a much greater need than ever. So we're going to ask Julie if she could go ahead and share her screen. Julie, you've got 15 minutes, and thereafter we'll have a 10-minute Q&A, and I'll need to cut you off at 15 minutes sharp. So please share your screen.
All right.
You can begin. You have 15 minutes.
There, am I shared?
Perfect. Yes, you're there.
Beautiful, beautiful. Well, I'm really grateful to be here today. So I'm delighted to introduce you to Golden. Art took a moment to introduce me. I have been a clinical social worker for 30 years and have been running Golden since 2003. So I have a whole lot that I wanna tell you today. I really want to start off by saying that at Golden, we consider ourselves to be the self-care experts. So with over 20 years of experience, we are the company that professionals and organizations turn to when they really want to create or enhance a culture of health and well-being, and really support healthy lifestyle for their employees. All of our programming is built on what we call the 4 pillars of wellness, which I'm going to introduce to you momentarily. And we really deliver wellness services that focus on improving physical, mental, and emotional well-being of both individuals and teams. Our programming is live. It is also recorded and online, and includes a combination of experiential and educational components in a multimedia format. So, one other thing to note is that Golden works with all different kinds of industries, from financial to, all different types of startups, basically the for-profit sector, but we also do a lot in the not-for-profit sector and work with caregivers and a geriatric population. So throughout the last 20 years, we've had the opportunity to really bring these resources to a beautifully diverse range of people, which has kept things really interesting. Now, I'd love to give you all just a taste of what we do by introducing you, as I mentioned, to the 4 pillars of wellness, which are movement, nourishment, stillness, and connection, which are the ingredients that enable human beings to thrive. If any of you have been parents, you know that your babies need tummy time, they need movement, they need plenty of sweet potatoes and avocados and healthy foods, they need rest, all different types of relaxation and downtime. And of course, they need connection, they need to be held, and they need to be talked to. And that's what enables these beings to thrive. And we are really just big babies. And oftentimes we forget that throughout the life cycle. Now, let's dive in to really get a sense of what some of the research says about these 4 pillars, because everything that Golden does is evidence-based. We know that movement is different for different people. We know that movement can be jogging, it can be yoga, it can be Tai Chi or dance or taking a walk. And we know that studies show that practices like yoga, Tai Chi, and Qigong can help to treat anxiety. We also know that moderate to vigorous exercise, things like high intensity interval training, is absolutely proven to decrease depression. We know that aerobic exercise releases serotonin, dopamine, and noradrenaline, endorphins, and these boost mood, they decrease stress, and they support and decrease anxiety and depression. We know that 89% of all published peer-reviewed research between 1990 and 2020 found a positive, statistically significant relationship between exercise and mental health. So in other words, if your employees are not exercising, then they are really not optimized in terms of their mental health. Taking a look at nourishment, and again, these are all the pillars that Golden's programming and the workforce educates and provides experiential components around. We know that nourishment is many things. Obviously, nourishment is food. Nourishing our bodies with healthy whole foods is vital. However, nourishment can also be things like nature or music or art, or things that nourish the mind and the heart and the soul. So why is nourishment so important? Let's focus on food. We know that, for example, serotonin is a chemical in the brain that is responsible for regulating happiness, anxiety, and mood. And we know that serotonin is made from essential amino acids, an amino acid called tryptophan, maybe you've heard of it, which has to enter the body through the diet. Things like eggs, cheese, salmon, pineapple, nuts, seeds. These foods are really important deliverers of all those healthy nutrients. We know that decreased levels of serotonin are associated with depression, mood swings, and anxiety disorders. And we know that ultimately what goes into the stomach communicates with the brain. So if your employees aren't feeding themselves with the types of foods that are going to nourish their brain, they're not optimized, and they're probably not so happy, which really starts to create problems when it comes to retention, when people aren't happy and they don't really know why. We know that a recent study evaluated 67 people diagnosed with depression. One group ate a Mediterranean style diet, the other group ate a diet high in processed foods or completely made up of processed foods. And we know that those that were on the Mediterranean diet, that their depression improved significantly. In fact, a third of the people that were diagnosed with depression in this study no longer had depression after being on this Mediterranean diet based on just a diet intervention alone. So again, educating your team about the importance of these things is just absolutely imperative. Stillness. Everybody knows what happens when we don't rest. We get cranky, we don't perform as well. And we know that in 2018, researchers found that things like mindfulness for depression and anxiety really had the same impact, positive impact on depression and anxiety as evidence-based treatments like cognitive behavioral therapy and antidepressants. Johns Hopkins did a study that found that meditating 20 minutes a day absolutely decreases depression. And in 2019, there was an analysis of 18 studies that found that mindfulness meditation improves sleep quality comparable to things like exercise and cognitive behavioral therapy. Again, both evidence-based treatments. So stillness is an often forgotten component in adults, and particularly in the workplace when people are working hard, and it is essential. We know that loneliness is also a huge problem, particularly in our current times. And we know that, in fact, the lack of connection in our lives, which leads to loneliness, can be as detrimental to our physical health as smoking a pack of cigarettes a day. So it's really important to create opportunities for people to come together and connect around things that are not work related, around things that really become shared interests and shared experiences with a team and an overall workplace community. So, with all that said, I want to take a moment to practice what we're preaching, just a really quick self-care practice before I talk a little bit more about how we deliver this. So we're just going to roll the shoulders for a moment, roll them up, back, and down, and then forward. Just giving yourself a moment to take a break. You can close your eyes and take a deep breath in. And a deep breath out. One more deep breath in. And a deep breath out. Deep breath in. Deep breath out. Just taking a brief moment of stillness, relaxing the muscles in the face, the jaw. Notice if you're clenching through your hands or your feet, or your belly. Inviting the whole body to soften for a moment. Just bringing some awareness to our physical presence here. And we'll close with one more deep breath in. And a full breath out. So one of the things that we've learned is that when we can teach employees to do small acts of self-care throughout the day, it can make a tremendous difference in how they feel and how they orient and relate to their work and their employer. Now, we know that well-being and programming is incredibly important. That's why you're here today. Just want to give you a very brief example. We have a client who has an employee, or who had an employee that I was actually working with directly in a coaching capacity, that shared with me that when her company was going back to a hybrid situation after being remote, that she was planning on leaving the organization because she was struggling with pretty severe anxiety and actually panic attacks. And she didn't think that she was going to be able to take it to be in the workplace, surrounded by her peers when she was struggling with such debilitating issues with her anxiety. And so what ended up happening, interestingly, is the employer, knowing that this transition was going to be a transition and that people were stressed in the workplace, they implemented a program with Golden. They implemented practice sessions, educational sessions, which I'll share with you in a moment. And through this programming, this employee was able to build up an incredible toolkit of ways that she can cope with her anxiety, got a lot of education around it, felt incredibly supported by her employer, and ended up, and shared this with me, deciding to actually stay in her job. And she was a highly, highly valuable employee. In fact, part of why she was so stressed out is because she was such a huge contributor and had a tremendous amount of responsibility. So this program was worth its weight in gold for this organization. And we know that either if you have a program or you don't have a program for your employees that focuses on well-being, that it is impacting your organization in one way or another. And that sometimes you might not even know or realize what's really happening behind the scenes, which we end up learning a lot about when we work with an organization. In fact, TELUS International did a survey that found that 80% of people would consider quitting their current position for a job that focused more on employee mental health. Now, what does a Golden program look like? It's a variety of things customized to your organization, but a quick sample related to the example of the program that the company that I just mentioned delivered is weekly wellness content that's really, really impactful and quick and easy to digest, practice sessions that are much longer, more extensive versions, 30 minutes of 15 or 30 minutes, I should say, of that little mini 2-minute session that we just did. Master classes, which are highly educational, giving all different kinds of interesting information that really gives people the why behind self-care, and even one-on-one coaching sessions. That's why I learned so much about that particular employee that shared with me that she was on the verge of leaving her organization. Our programs are really customized to your organization and a schedule that works well for your team. We also give you all the marketing materials that you need to share your program with your employee community. And we create a wellness hub, which is a digital home for the content where all of the recordings of our live sessions, which drive so much connection, are housed so that people can access them anytime, anywhere, in addition to a wide range of other resources. So with all that said, I welcome your questions.
Well, great. Well, thank you, Julie. That was good. I was glad you got toward the end because I was wondering about the, how you deploy this with a distributed workforce. So you've got a virtual digital space to provide that to companies. I was just wondering, is there a typical program that a company, or a more prevailing type of program that companies select and those that you work with?
Absolutely. So, I would say that a fairly typical type of program would include a monthly masterclass, which is usually 30 minutes, which is usually a Zoom meeting, just like what we're doing right now, where employees can come together and live with one of our incredible experts. And that's part of what we're known for, is just this extraordinary world-class team of wellness professionals and educators, who can educate employees around, for example, the power of nutrition and how it impacts their stress and their mood, or the science behind movement and figuring out which movements are best for you, meaning exercise practices that are going to meet your needs and your goals, to things like how do you actually build healthy habits, right? It's easy to know what to do, but actually figuring out how to make the behavioral changes that enable you to do them is easier said than done. And there's a science behind it. So we educate people with those monthly master classes. And then there might be a 1 or 2 time a week practice session where there are opportunities to meditate and learn breathing practices, or do gentle or more rigorous moving practices, or even do things like learn how to make a healthy smoothie at home for employees that are in a work from home situation. Then there are weekly wellness tips, which are that written content that goes out once a week. So it's just this little inspiration or touch point to build on everything that we're already doing. So that's sort of a fairly typical outline of a program. But again, we customize based on the needs of the organization and size of the budget, quite frankly.
To that point about the budget, I've got a CFO who's always wanting to say, show me the proof of concept that this has an ROI. Have you encountered that before? And what is your response to that?
Absolutely. Well, I would say that, just the story that I mentioned around that really important employee that she was salaried at about $180,000 a year, and she'd been there for quite some time, made it through the entire pandemic. She was a highly valuable team member. This organization's program was costed them $20,000 annually. So it was not a huge expense. And when you think about the ROI that employee stayed in that job and continued to deliver her years and years of expertise in that organization, because they armed her with tools to manage her anxiety, and because she felt really supported and cared for by the organization, I think speaks to the ROI.
That's good to know. It's been a while since I was a senior partner at Mercer. We were estimating that the cost of turnover was about 90% of the annual salary. So
exactly,
by the time you have to find somebody, you've got a gap in the organization. Of course, we're talking to a group of CHROs who know this much better than I do, but I think that gives a pretty good framing of the ROI for CFOs that might be wondering how this is contributing to increased human capital ROI and increase in EBITDA.
Absolutely.
Profit oriented. And you said you offer this to both the for-profit world, and you said you're also sort of spilling over into the not-profit community. Any noteworthy organizations in terms of just clients that you have that this group might be interested in hearing about?
Sure. We sign a lot of NDAs with our clients because we work with a lot of big boys and girls, I should say, in the financial industry that have been for many, many years. And the not-for-profit side, though, names that I'm able to mention, we've worked with New York Foundling, for example, which is a New York-based social service agency that we work with for many, many years. Myself being a social worker, I am really committed to bringing this work to, quite frankly, the people that really need it the most. So a lot of people that work in nonprofit are struggling with huge amounts of stress. So that's really an important part of our mission, is to make sure that we serve all types of people.
You mentioned the financial services industry. Is that Wall Street, or is that the insurance industry? I'm just curious.
Everything. So yeah, we started, we actually were born out of 9/11. We're a New York-based organization. And so when 9/11 hit, we had tons of people on Wall Street coming to us and wanting all different types of programming to support the mental health of their teams who had suffered a very severe trauma in New York, being down on Wall Street on 9/11. And so then out of that, we ended up working with, tons of hedge funds. We've worked with Morgan Stanley for years. We worked with a lot of New York-based financial institutions. But then from there, it, of course, grew over the last 20 years. And we work with, you saw Elevations Credit Union. We work in the insurance industry for sure. And so it's, I would say our original client base was kind of that Wall Street clientele. And they do say that, as New Yorkers, like, if you can make it there, you can make it anywhere. And I think delivering to that demographic was really, really, it was challenging. They were highly discerning, very, very high need and very high levels of, I guess discernment is really the best word to describe it, which made us become or learn how to become really the best of the best. That's one of the reasons why we're known for our talent, because so many of our clients we're dealing with such high performers and very intelligent human beings that we can't get away with having anything less than sort of world-class presenters.
Thank you. As a reminder to everybody on the webinar, you're able to click on the raised hand feature and to ask a question, or you can simply, show yourself in the browser, or you can type your question in the chat function. So I'm filling in the gaps here until some of you get inquisitive and send a message out there for Julie to answer. And when I think about workplace reaction, to just stress. And yet every break room I've ever been around the world has coffee pots in it with caffeine. Do you have an opinion about should that be banned from the break room?
Well, here's my dilemma, and I have nothing against coffee if it doesn't make you feel anxious or interrupt your sleep, which coffee is, in fact, one of our nutritionists once told me that as long as it doesn't create anxiety, coffee is actually not the problem. It's what people put into the coffee that's the problem. It's all the sugar and the milk that's the problem. In fact, there's been really positive research around coffee. But one of the things that I love about the coffee, the coffee in the break room is that it's an opportunity for connection, which we know is so vital. And again, that's what our sessions really seek to do, is to create an opportunity for people to come together and connect over an interesting topic, because so many people are missing that in today's workforce. But if getting to the coffee maker helps you strike up a great conversation, or even just say hello and look somebody else in the eye, I think it's worth it.
So we have a question in how many team members do you have, Julie, with Golden, and how many team members are deployed to a client with 1,000 employees, for example?
That's a great question. So we have a really large team of wellness professionals. We probably have serving the corporate setting, several hundred, and this is global because we work with global organizations. And so, for example, we need people in all time zones because we're delivering in APAC and we're delivering in, all over Europe. So in California, so we need to be able to juggle time zones. So we have professionals all over the place. And part of what we need to do is really meet the scheduling demands of the organization. So we have a large pool to pull from, and then we match talent with an organization based on a variety of variables, what that organization is needing, what we think is the talent on our team that we think is going to be the best fit for them. And then of course the time zone. And so in any organization, we might have a team of anywhere between 5 and 10 kind of regular presenters that are engaging. We try to create that sweet spot between consistency and variety. So of our team that's coming in to present, we want there to be some consistency because those relationships are built and people end up sort of falling in love with these presenters because they're so wonderful. But we also know that everybody resonates with something different. And so we try to create some nice variety. So for an 1,000-person organization, there might be between 5 and 10 members of our team that interface with the org.
One more question before we wrap this part up, but is there any potential collaboration synergies between yourself and Workplace Healing?
Absolutely. Actually, we just mentioned this on our pre-call chit chat, and I can't wait to catch up with Workplace Healing because I think that creating opportunities, whether they're educational or more experiential, to support people with grief in the workplace is really could be just an amazing value add for Golden.
Great. Well, we have any more questions we want to pose to Julie? Remember, you can just click on the raise hand feature or type your questions in directly. And going once, going twice. All right. Well, thank you, Julie. Appreciate those comments and what you're doing. What a great service you're providing to companies. All right, Lisa and Mindy, you get up next. You're about ready? Before, if you don't mind, go ahead and share your screen. I want to remind everybody to let our presenters know, or those at ESA, that you're interested in engaging with them for further conversations. So you'll share your screen and we'll let you have 15 minutes, and you know the drill now. Afterwards, we'll cut you off and you got 10 minutes Q&A. So take it away.
Sounds good. Thank you. Hi, I'm Mindy Corcoran, and I'm co-founder of Workplace Healing.
And I'm Lisa Cooper, co-founder of Workplace Healing. And I have to add, before, as we get started, with Julie's fourth pillar of empathy, we're training leadership to be empathetic in the corporate world. That's our objective. But I think the best way to articulate what Workplace Healing is doing is to really share a story. So allow me 1 minute to share a quick story on what we're doing and how it can relate. We had a situation where a trusted, seasoned, long-term employee came back after bereavement leave. She had a 5-day bereavement leave and her husband had passed away. She came back to work, she had a cubicle, her entire team was in shock. No one knew what to say. Some people would rush in and give her a hug, others just stood back, frankly, and said nothing. She felt very alienated. She had made some significant mistakes at work in the first month coming back after bereavement leave. She was quiet, and then nobody invited her to lunch anymore. The happy hours, she was not included. People were afraid to talk about their families. They were afraid that they might hurt her feelings or remind her that her husband had passed away. So the bottom line was the team did nothing. The vice president ended up taking her to lunch. Her manager that she reported to was wondering what was wrong. It was 2 weeks and she wasn't back to normal yet. A few months later, she looked for another job and thought perhaps she could have a fresh start somewhere else. So she left the company after being there more than 10 years with a very strong track record and started fresh somewhere else. Her manager, her vice president, and her team just didn't have the tools. They didn't know how to respond to this woman when she came back after bereavement leave. And this is the problem that we're solving in corporate America. So we like to look at the prevalence of grief in the workplace. When we talk about grief, the numbers are just staggering. 1 in 4 employees is grieving at any given time. And we look at the numbers of people working in corporate America. You can see here that the numbers are very high, 4 million employees experiencing the death of a loved one. And the thing that we're really focusing on with the C-suite and the retention and everything that is going on right now in our world is that 59% of employees, when they come back to work after a bereavement, after a grief event, they're going to consider looking for another job if they don't feel supported by their team. So retention is incredibly affected when you look at grief. We also want to say that we look at the numbers in corporate America. $113 billion are spent on lost productivity and errors, which is very significant. So how can we support these employees but train managers on what to do? When we started Workplace Healing back in July of 2018, we started out with focus groups and we interviewed key HR leaders and C-suite leaders with companies ranging from 55 employees to 55,000 employees. And we found 4 common threads. Number 1, the HR departments are seeking solutions to fill employee engagement. I think we just heard from Julie, it's just one of those examples. And a lot of times the existing solutions to help employees are lacking, specifically with employee assistance plans. We know that most of the companies that we're speaking to do indeed have employee assistance plans. In fact, 98% of companies across the country do. But the fact is they're underutilized and the utilization rate is around 7% right now. So clearly the solutions aren't working and there's not a lot of metrics to define success with those EAPs. And as I articulated in the story, nobody knows what to do when someone comes back to work. Nobody knows what to say. So therefore nothing happens and then an employee feels alienated. We found over the course again of all our research from 2018 to fall of 2021, we were building our software, that there's clearly a need for a 24/7 on-demand tool. Because what we found was that we could go into corporate America and we could talk about empathy training and we could train managers, but 6 months later, when an employee has a personal life disruption, they need a quick solution and they need a solution any time of the day. So we created the B2B SaaS tool, the Human Recovery Plan software platform.
Thanks, Lisa. So we don't have time to show you a full demo, but I'm going to show you some slides and give you a walkthrough of what our software does look like. So our software is in use right now. We are onboarding our 7th client very shortly. And we launched our software in February of 2022. So we started building it last summer and it's already in use. And it's working really well. It's very intuitive. So this is a screenshot of what a plan builder would see. And I'll give you a definition of a plan builder. A plan builder could be a manager, a supervisor, someone in human resources. A plan builder could be a colleague. A plan builder is someone at the company who knows that there's been a grieving person, a life disrupted person on their team, and they need encouragement, they need a touch, they need acknowledgement to help pull them in for what we call a soft landing rather than a hard landing when they come back into the workspace. On the right-hand side of every screen are messaging, messages and education to, as Art mentioned, to increase and build the empathy muscle of the plan builder. And so we are working right now in our minimal viable product. So it's our MVP, and we started using and started the software with the death scenarios and death lane. It's our expectation to add to this in the software architecture, but right now this is what our current clients are using. So there are 11 selections for a type of death that has occurred. And then you can see on the right-hand side, we continue to have educational and empathy comments for education. So this is the hub. This is our build. This is the heart of what we do. And the question that was asked, would we collaborate with Golden? This is where that would fit in. So in the event we were to collaborate with anyone, we would put this up here. Right now we have something called Spark One Head Tactics. So this is where we could do collaboration with different organizations. But specifically, I want to point out on the head-based side of what you're seeing, which is on the left-hand side, this is where the employer gets to shine and say, look to their plan builder, this is what we already offer. You know, for instance, this is what client A already offers. So please use this service. It could be an EAP. It could be specific health insurance. It could be that they use Golden, right? So they can create, we would create a customized tactic card. That's what we call these on the left side, because that's company based. So our whole scenario here is to be head and heart based. It's an empathetic approach, but we also understand return on investment is needed at every company. So we want to give our plan builder permission to talk about what's going to happen at work. And we want our plan builder to also be able to implement acknowledgement in an empathetic way. On the right-hand side, you will see that there are what we call empathy tactic cards, and we have over 28 empathy offers. And then a plan is built by clicking and selecting what our plan builder wants to use. And then we're going to move forward into how we onboard. Thanks, Lisa.
Thanks, Mindy. So when we look at how we're selling this into corporate America, if you'll recall in our research, we said that 25% of your employees are grieving. So 1 in 4 employees are grieving at any given time. So we start out and we say, when we did our research, we had so much feedback from literally across the board saying, don't price this like an employee assistance plan. Don't price this on a per employee basis. So we're pricing this on a human recovery plan per human basis. In other words, $50 per plan. And we sell them in an annual subscription contract with our clients. And I often just anecdotally add, if you were to buy a flower arrangement for a grieving employee, you would probably spend $65 to $70. So it kind of puts it in perspective here. So our plans that, as Mindy mentioned, the plan builder builds, the corporate leader of the HR department or the manager builds is $50 a plan. And you can see if you're the CEO and you have 1,000 employees, we would like you to purchase 250 plans on an annual subscription basis. They don't expire. And it's kind of like the old days of cell phone minutes. They never expire. And they continue to roll over if they haven't used them all. We are finding that companies specifically are adding more as time goes on. And real quick on that back slide on the efficient onboarding, I do want to say that we're onboarding our clients now, and the process is truly threefold and very simple. We have a leadership discussion with the C-suite, the CHRO, the HR departments. We talk about how the human recovery plan launch is going to occur, internal launch, for example, announcing it in company newsletters. Some companies have said they want us to participate in an event at their company to announce this new benefit that they're implementing. And then we do software platform training. It's very simple. And frankly, in about 15 minutes, our clients They've got it downloaded and they know what to do. We think it's very important to measure exactly what we're doing. And it's very important to us to go to a client a year from now and say, here's what a home run looks like for you. So before a client, even a plan builder, even builds a plan, we ask them their confidence level in dealing with a griever. What we've seen is they start out about 0-1, and by the end of the process, they reach a 5, which is 100%. We ask them their access to a personalized plan for that griever that really meets that specific need. And again, they start low and they end high when they finish the plans. We also work with our clients at I mentioned the leadership training to have utilization reporting. So if you're the CEO, the CHRO, you can go into your company and see how many plans have been built, what desk scenarios they've selected, and even drill down in terms of the demographics so we can begin to look back and say, this is what your company is selecting. And the process is has been very simple and very efficient. We're also going back in and asking clients to give us a Net Promoter Score. So these are the clients to date that we have. Mindy mentioned that we started selling plans in the spring. So right now we have these 7 clients right now. They're in various stages of onboarding. I will say that Cohen Esery, for example, was our first client, commercial real estate and real estate here in Kansas City. And if you have some time on our blogs, on our article page, they recently had a death of a coworker scenario occur. And quite frankly, we could not have gotten through the event without the help of Workplace Healing. I'll add also that we have 60 clients in our sales funnel right now, ready to move over to eventual sales. And again, we're company direct. We do not work with brokers. We're working directly with companies.
I want to end with letting you know that this was created because of a tragedy that happened in my personal life. I was the CEO and co-founder of a wealth management firm. And at the time I was in that position, my father and son were both murdered in Overland Park, Kansas. And I went back to work to an office that I had actually created. I went back to a team that I had put together, and they tried very hard to help me have a soft landing. But it was very, very difficult. And I realized, unfortunately, that I wasn't going to be able to stay in that position. And I had a lot of flexibility to be able to do so. So I took that tragedy and the skill set of being an entrepreneur and running a company, and unfortunately the skill set of being a griever, to creating and giving the idea of what workplace healing could be. So workplace healing is innovatively increasing confidence and empathy and strengthening empathy muscle in the workplace. Thank you. Thanks, Art.
Thank you.
Might help if I turn off my mute button, but thank you, Lisa. Thank you, Mindy. So we're at that stage here now. We're in the Q&A session for our friends at Workplace Healing. So if you would like to ask a question, please click the raise hand feature, or you can type a message into the chat function. We do have one question. That is, what are the vital behavioral manifestations of positive support and care in a situation such as you described in the story that you shared? Mindy.
So Rick, are you specifically asking about the story that Lisa shared to begin with, or my personal story, if it had been different?
Well, I suppose either, but I was thinking about the story that Lisa had shared.
Right. You know what we're finding, Rick, and thank you for that question, because when we talk to companies, they tell us about the 2 main downstream effects of grief that they're experiencing with their employees: absenteeism and presenteeism. And they're measuring absenteeism now. And like, for example, with our story with this woman, there, you know, she only had 5 days of bereavement, and there was some additional absenteeism that had to occur. But we're hearing back from companies, and I think you actually were helpful early on with us with presenteeism, because companies are struggling with how to measure presenteeism. And they're struggling because it's a self-advocacy reporting technique. So no one's actually, people often don't say, well, gee, I'm only functioning at 10% today to their boss. So, but companies are working harder at, we're finding at engagement surveys to really get at the heart of presenteeism. So our expectation with workplace healing and with the human recovery plan, if we can create a supportive team environment and train leaders on what is presenteeism and what are the downstream effects of grief and how much is being lost, a third or more in lost productivity, then that's our objective. And if that helps answer your question.
I think it does. And I might ask Mindy, you know, behaviorally, what is it that we don't do that we should do to support people who are going through tragedies?
Right. Thank you. What we should do if we're supporting someone is to acknowledge that their life is in chaos when they're not there. And we come back to work as a griever and want some normalcy. But we also want to be acknowledged that that things are very different, that our life situation is different. And without the acknowledgement, so your question was about positive support. When positive support happens, it helps us hold our story when we walk into that office space. It helps us own our story and have our story. And, you know, gone is the day that we say, leave it in the parking lot. You really cannot leave half of yourself in the parking lot. You do need to show up wholly for work. And actually, I think our employers want us to show up as a whole person. So the positive support allows us to do so. And that makes a significant difference on someone that you want to help you as a company have a good return on investment.
And, you know, I'll add to that too, when Mindy mentioned the parking lot scenario, one of the things in our human recovery plan software platform, we strongly recognize that a lot of offices are still virtual and a lot of offices are still hybrid. So every one of our tactics on the head and heart-based side can be adapted to a virtual environment as well, because that's another problem that we've been seeing with our research, with our qualitative research, is you've got a manager who's managing somebody who's had a personal life disruption, but yet they're working from home. So they really don't know how much that person is struggling because they're not in their cubicle, they're not at work. So we feel it's very important to make sure that we have hybrid solutions.
Thank you.
That made me think of something. Would you say that the COVID isolation from remote workforce has lessened our ability to know how to help, grieving employees, or have we always been sort of had this gap?
We think that COVID has actually been a very positive reinforcer for the objective that we're trying to accomplish, because people, number one, understand grief, and number two, there's been an uptick in people talking about mental health. Just taking a step back though, we're consistently training the manager. We're not touching the griever. We're not touching the end result here. But COVID has literally brought an uptick in people being aware of how to support each other.
Right. And I would just say, Art, that no one has ever known what to do or what to say to a grieving person. So, but exactly what Lisa said is COVID has opened the door to have the conversation. And so unfortunately, COVID has raised the awareness level to such a extreme height that I think it's really seen what we need to do as humans is help other humans and reach across, whether it's virtually or a phone call or in a cubicle or at the coffee machine, as Julie was talking about. We need to help one another as humans and not ignore one another when we're in a state of grief or trauma.
Yeah, I was thinking about one of the 4 pillars about connection, and that we have a growing disproportional elderly population and a younger population that does not want to have conversations, at least not on a phone, but they're using text and other media. That is not the kind of a human-to-human connection, right, that we're talking about here, I believe.
Right. We are talking about any type of communication that would be received well by the griever. So as Lisa said, workplace healing does not speak directly to the griever, but the plan builder should know this person. The plan builder should have an idea of what is best for the person who's grieving, because they work with them. They're either their boss or their supervisor, or they're in the HR department of the company, and they know what age they are. They know what type of communication they might receive best. And so it could be private. It could be a private card. It could be an in-person lunch. It could be a day on the golf course. You know, it could be pickleball. So the plan builder needs to embrace the fact that they now have this great tactical tool to put a plan in place and engage that employee.
And
I
let me
actually-
articulate that a minute more, Art, that might help. Like, for example, just one of our examples, we have a client here in Kansas City. They have 350-ish employees. They've identified 3 people at the top of the HR department that are the champions. One person's a liaison that works directly with us. Now they've identified across the country 30 plan builders, because they know that the HR department in Kansas City does not know the personality types of every single person that can be having a life disruption across the country. So they have these 30 plan builders. They've been trained on the software, short 15-minute training. The HR department knows what's going on with the plans. And these plan builders literally are managing the employee who's grieving and simply building a human recovery plan in those different parts of the country. So they're building, whether it's sending them to the EAP or whether having a team lunch, they're building those specific plans across the country, 24/7.
So it's really, part of this could be omni-channel communications, right? It doesn't have to be face-to-face in real life. It could be different modes of communications, what I'm learning from you. So that's kind of good to know. I worked for a company, we talked about 9/11 earlier, that we lost 400 employees on 9/11. It didn't get the airtime because they were in different subsidiaries, so it didn't talk about the roll up of the parent. And you know, we struggle with what to say to their spouse, because this now was on a grand scale, right, within the company.
Right.
We ultimately helped the company move forward by having memorial sessions in AMC theaters across the country, all, you know, simulcast, you know, across the world, to get that put behind us. But as I get older and have a lot of older friends, you know, I'm finding the need for these skills more and more through the untimely deaths of friends and colleagues and so forth. So keep up the good work that you're doing that. I really appreciate that. I think we're kind of running out of time and don't have any additional questions, but let's go ahead and wrap up for today. If that's giving the one last chance for a question from any one of the people on the call. Going once, going twice. All right. Well, thank you, Lisa. Thank you, Mindy. That just about wraps up things today. We hope everybody has benefited by learning something new. I certainly have. I mean, Golden, you know, taught us about employee well-being and engagement improvement and retention by accessing their large network of self-care experts to create a culture of health and well-being and boost engagement and build coworker relationships. I'm already working on my deep breathing and my rolling my shoulders back. So thank you very much for that, Julie, and keep up the good work there. Workplace Healing, who knows, there might be a combination in the future that's a Golden workplace healing company, but they also do the same for improving engagement and retention by their 24/7 software tools and equip managers with the information they need and building that empathetic muscle to help employees are dealing with grief, and metrics for success too. One final reminder that we're going to send a link out to all the ESH YouTube channel with the presentations, but please reach out directly to the presenters via the contact information provided in the presentation to learn more. That takes it to the end today. John, I'm going to kick it back to you to close this out.
Thanks, Art. You've just covered every little bullet point that I was going to mention.
I'm sorry.
No, all good. Art, just a tip of the cap. Can't thank you enough for your time, you expertly facilitating these 8 sessions. It's been greatly appreciated. Thank you both, Golden, Julie, and Workplace Healing, Lisa and Mindy, for sharing your best of the best wellness solutions. So appreciate everybody's time. Be looking for those PDF versions of the slides. Please reach out to Workplace Healing or Golden to inquire further about the great things that they're doing. You'll see a YouTube recording link as well. So if you want to go back and review this, there will be a quick survey after we leave. We certainly always appreciate your feedback on how we are doing and how we can do it even better. So thank you again. Have a great week. I appreciate all of you. So take care. Signing off.
Thank you, everyone.